I always start every conversation with the same question. And the question is this: tell me something unexpected you learned about yourself that changed everything.
That's a hell of a first question.
Yeah. So,
yeah, I'm like,
sorry.
Holy shit. I mean, most people, first question is, what was it like to work with Steve Jobs?
We want
unexpected
more from
you learned about yourself. Huh. And do we have a time frame limit or,
No, it's just an open question for a great thinker to expound.
Man, I feel like I'm digging myself out of a hole in the first 30 seconds of this podcast. My God. Well, I think I certainly learned that I love to work. And, when you're young, you don't think about that. You're trying to avoid work, right? You're trying to avoid all the challenges. And as I got older, I just love to work. I mean, I am Angela Duckworth's poster child. I mean, when you look up grit in Wikipedia, there should be a picture of me. I love to work. And that's not something I would have predicted. I'm from Hawaii, for crying out loud. Who loves to work from Hawaii?
I mean, you know what? That's amazing. But this is a non sequitur, but still relevant. My Aunt Cheryl was the runner-up to Miss Hawaii in 1959. And you know why she didn't win? Because she did an art project instead of dancing the hula. It was a little too countercultural.
Wait, when was this?
This was in the 60s at some point.
Jeez, maybe I dated her.
Maybe. She is wonderful. She's absolutely wonderful. So... Okay, good. So you like to work. Well, I'm going to put you to work here to talk about your new book, Think Remarkable. It's a great book. I spent some time with it, and it's just like kind of a lot of wisdom packed into a slender, sort of volume. Yeah. Talk about what this book is about. Why did you write this book?
Whenever you ask an author a question like that, every author, well, not every author, because most authors not clever enough to think about it, but when you ask a clever author, what is this book about? I remember the story of Tom Clancy, and he was at a press conference, and somebody asked Tom Clancy, what's your book about? And he said, it's about $25. And then if you're honest and you ask an author, why did you write this book? The honest answer is, I got a big freaking advance. Now, that's not the answers you're looking for, but that's closer to the truth.
Wow. It's
so
nice to
I
hear.
have this podcast called Remarkable People, and it's been going for about 5 years. Interviewed about 250 people, remarkable people, such as Jane Goodall, Stacey Abrams, Margaret Atwood, Stephen Wolfram, Angela Duckworth, Bob Cialdini. And so now I have 250 hours of podcast. I have about 4,000 or 5,000 pages of transcripts because I'm deaf. And so I don't know, maybe there's only 5 people in the world who read my transcripts. But when you're deaf, you have a greater appreciation for what a transcript can mean. And so one day my co-author and I, Madison Neismer, we figured out, we have such great content in this podcast, but if somebody wanted to get at it all, you'd have to listen to 250 hours or read 5,000 pages, and no one's going to do that. So we should make it easy for people. So we took basically 5,000 pages down to 170. And, I love books like The Elements of Style as opposed to the Chicago Manual of Style, right? Or another analogy is I like TikTok. My book is TikTok. It's not TEDx even. 18 minutes is long. And so and then my co-author, I said, what book do you read when you wanted inspiration and all that? And she said, everybody I know in my age group, we own and have read multiple times the 4 Agreements. And I said to her, what is the 4 Agreements? I never heard of that. And so I bought it and I looked at it, and I can't tell you I have any kind of Mayan wisdom in my book from a religion. But the goal was that this is kind of I hope that someday somebody asks somebody who's in their 20 and says, what's the book that, really helped you figure out what you want to do in life and how you should proceed in life? And they say, Think Remarkable and The Four Agreements.
Both of them. Well, it is a really smart idea. I'm thinking well, I should do this too. The idea that you've talked to all these really smart people who are remarkable people, and there are threads and through lines in the things that these people bring to the table. And I think, did I see Malala, the activist, was also on your show at some point?
I tried. I mean, if you're out there listening, Malala, you have a carte blanche invitation. Right. I'll take Malala, you anytime you want.
Malala, you're listening right now, hopefully. I say that because I saw that she was listed somewhere in the book. You think about all these people, Greta Thunberg, you think about Oprah, you think about just the people who've been on your show or that you've met or that you're observing how they work. And there are traits that one could identify and then emulate. So what I'd love to do with our time today is to start focusing on some of those. So I'll let you pick, choose your own adventure here. As I said, I like to make my guests work. Where would you like to start in terms of talking about the insights that you share in the book?
Okay. So after much analysis, I picked up the threads. Actually, they're more like ropes than threads. And basically, remarkable people have three sort of distinct stages, and they go through growth first. And growth, I love Carol Dweck. Carol Dweck's Growth Mindset. That book changed my life. So the first part of the book is about how to embrace the growth mindset. Now, you can have a growth mindset and want to achieve new things and learn new skills, but then you need the grit mindset. And that comes from MacArthur Fellow Angela Duckworth. And so the second part is about grit. And then the third part is about grace. And I would say the person who personifies grace in my mind is Jane Goodall.
Yeah.
Who I talked to today, as a matter of fact, to drop a name. And so I keep seeing these patterns. Every remarkable person had a growth mindset and they worked hard. And towards the end of their career, they decided that what they should be doing is paying back, not just reaping.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. Talk about, from your perspective, because growth mindset is one of those things that people throw that around all the time. And I, too, am a lover of the growth mindset. And I love reframing. When something doesn't go my way, I always try to find the way to think, where's the growth that can come out of this? That's not only just because it can happen, but also because it is a survival method. If you can do that when things don't go your way, you can move forward with your life instead of being stuck in the mire. But as you think about growth mindset from your perspective and the career that you've had, what have you learned about it? That you didn't know 30 years ago.
30 years ago, I think that many people they're trying to position themselves. They're trying to create an image, and maybe even more important and more destructive, a self-image. And so if you have the growth mindset, one of the consequences of the growth mindset is you have to embrace vulnerability. Because if you're going to take up a new sport, a new subject, a new career, you're not going to be good at it at the start. Now, knock on wood if you are, praise God, but the odds are you're going to suck at it. And so you need to be able to push through that. And one of the problems with people with the fixed mindset is that because they have been successful in some things and often relatively easily, they think that if something is hard, it's either not worth doing or they cannot do it. So if you're successful with, calculus, and then you want to take up art and you find art very hard and frustrating, you're either going to conclude that I'm just not an artist, I don't have talent, or it's not worth doing or something like that. And it takes this vulnerability, this willing to risk your image and self-image to push through that. And that's a major part of being remarkable.
What do you do? Now, I love having you on here because I'm going to ask you all the hard questions I don't know the answers to. What do you do when you're a founder or you're a friend or you're a boss and you have the growth mindset? You're like, that's not the issue, but you're dealing with somebody who does not. Like, how can you foster that and encourage that in somebody else?
I think you have to, well, first of all, you have to give the opportunity to people to embrace growth, right? Because I would say that in most organizations, there probably isn't a growth mindset.
Yeah.
And so, if, can you blame these people if they've been bludgeoned and stuck in a box for years, and all of a sudden you arrive and you're wondering, how come you're not growing? So you need to understand where they come from. The big question is to ask maybe yourself, but to try to figure out, how did you get this fixed mindset? Is it because you were so successful you didn't want to risk your image, or was it because you just suffered setback after setback, so you just gave up after a while? And then I will tell you that you position this as the boss has the growth mindset, the employee doesn't. I would say that that's a relatively rare combination. I think it's much more likely that the boss has a fixed mindset and the employee has the growth mindset. And so I just interviewed a professor named Mary Murphy, and she is Carol Dweck's protege. So remember this name, Mary Murphy. You're going to hear this name because she came up with the brilliant insight. And she went to Carol Dweck and she said, Carol, the growth mindset implies that everything is in your brain, right? It's in your brain, your perspective, your philosophy that you can or you cannot grow, that you embrace vulnerability or not. But that's only half the picture, because you can have a growth mindset in a fixed mindset company and you will be bludgeoned to death. You cannot grow. It takes the environment and the personal mindset. And it sounds like a duhism now, but that is so true. It's very difficult to be, this lone outpost of growth mindset in a place that's a fixed mindset. And you know what? Like, when people hear fixed mindset, they understand that these are people who don't believe in growth and change and all that. But be cautious, because when you encounter an organization, and it's called the genius phenomenon. And this is a negative. In the genius environment, you're either a genius or you're not. And you are what you are. You're not going to get better, but you're also not going to get worse. And so in a genius environment, let's say, I bet you places like Goldman Sachs and McKinsey has a genius environment, right? Best of the brightest, Ivy League school, MBA from Harvard. We're the best. We're the brightest. We're the geniuses, and we want immediate results. And there's no training. There's no development. There's no diversity. There's no growth, because people are assumed to be perfect. And that's a fixed mindset too.
It's such a good point. I'll tell you something, Guy. I had a buddy who was a Harvard MBA, by the way, who went to Goldman Sachs. He was working at a small, nimble company, and he got that fancy job at Goldman, and he went there. And you know what he said to me? He said, Patrick, I knew it was going to be bureaucratic. I just didn't think it was going to be so mediocre. And I think that mediocre. And I think the reason why, first of all, because these companies are huge now. So it's just hard to cultivate the culture of excellence that they might have had 35 years ago. But also, when companies become that big, it's a system. And so people get sucked into, and I'm sure by the way, there's lots of smart people at Goldman Sachs. This is not the theme of the episode to take a poo on Goldman Sachs. Yay for you, Goldman Sachs. Like, I love your building. I look at it out my window every day. But I think it also says something about his fit, right? I just don't want to get in trouble. It's the fit. Like, for some people, maybe Goldman Sachs does provoke their genius, but for him, it did not. And so he moved on, and he's doing great. I love it. That's a really, and folks, when you're thinking about joining organizations, this is such a good thing to look out for. Such a good thing to look out for. Now, I want to turn to grit because it's a word that gets thrown around a lot. Obviously, Angela Duckworth has made a huge contribution to the world of business thought, and that is an evergreen, people talk about it, and I love her work. I also love just all the stuff that comes out of University of Pennsylvania with Martin Seligman and all of the positives I call it. I want to eat it up like ice cream. I just love it. Now, the question I have for you is, I guess kind of a similar thing is like, what have you learned, whether it's from your guests or just your own lived experience? How have your views on what makes grit shifted over time?
I probably picked this up more or less from my parents. And, I've seen it over and over again. At the end of the day, I think grit trumps talent. Mm-hmm. If you gave me two people, one who had grit and one who had, natural talent, I would pick the person with grit, because the person with grit isn't going to give up. But the person with natural talent at some point is going to figure out that I am not that special, right? At some point, you're surrounded by people just as good as you. And then it becomes a matter of who can bust through, who has the balls and the courage to bust through. And that takes grit, not just talent. And I think it's a really simple concept that you just have to work hard. I mean, and I understand the differentiation between working hard and working smart and all that kind of cleverness, but you just have to pay the price. It's very simple.
It is very true what you say, and I think it's like people have we have so many hacks in our lives, right? Everything's a hack now. Hack. And hacks are good. Like, I like a good hack just as much as the next guy. I love AI. Like, give me AI all the time. But you can't hack your way into expertise.
Nope.
You just can't.
Nope. Well, that's, I think a very good test. I learned this from Mark Manson, who's the author of The Subtle Art of Not Giving a You-Know-What.
Yeah. It's like, don't say it.
Yeah. And when I interviewed him, he said, Guy, you will know that you have found what you really love, and maybe your ikigai, your reason for living and waking up in the morning, when what you do involves something that most people consider a shit sandwich, but you still love to do it. And I would say one podcaster to another, there's a lot of shit sandwiches in podcasting, right?
I was just thinking, I was like, sounds like podcasting.
Well, there's the editing, there's the prep. I mean, everything.
Yeah.
And there's nothing easy. It's like, if people think that all you do for podcasting is you turn on and you press record, oh my God, you have no idea. And so if you're a podcaster, you got to learn to prep and you got to learn to edit. And if you're a writer, you've got to learn to edit. And most people think that when you write a book, you're on your veranda and it's a sunny day, and your kids are all weighing college acceptances between Dartmouth, Harvard, Yale, and Stanford, and the house is clean, the dinner's on the table, and then you get your gold 18-karat Mont Blanc fountain pen, and you have your parchment, and the words just flow out of your brain into your paper and creates a bestseller. And in fact, writing is just shit work. It is, you just have to keep editing and editing and editing.
Oh, it's a grind. It's a grind. And you know what? On top of that, and this goes to some of the, it kind of to bring it all together with the grit and the growth mindset, is when you do this stuff, and I'm not complaining, by the way, I love it, but like when you write a book, like you are asking just to be rejected a lot. People think your ideas are bad. Your publisher, you get rejected by the amount of rejection. I never really thought about rejection that much in my life until I got into the world of books and podcasts and realized you have everybody, you get a lot of people who love your work and they tell you, and it's really cool and appreciated. But people, if they don't like it, they will tell you. And then you're like, wow. So, it's just a thing you learn.
I don't know if I should tell you this, but
Oh, then
I
you
saved
should.
the rejection letters from publishers from my books.
Oh, that's so smart. My agent wouldn't give me. She's like, once I got the deal, she's like, you got rejected 33 times. And I was like, wow, thank you for nurturing my soul. But
Oh, so you had instant success. You were only rejected 33 times.
it was, it was amazing. Yeah.
Melanie Perkins, the CEO and founder of Canva, when she was raising money for Canva, she got rejected 300 times.
Oh my goodness.
300 times. That's like a mind-boggling number. And
it's
now
amazing.
Canva is this insane unicorn, right? Democratizing design in the world.
Oh, I love Canva. I use Canva all the time. I love it. It's like you're rolling around inside my head right now because you just took me to my next question, which is our last question before our lightning round.
Okay. I love lightning rounds. I
know you can handle my lightning round. I'm excited. But my question is this. You have the job that I think I would really love, which is being the chief evangelist of something. Like I am an evangelizer, like not religiously, but when I love something, I just want everybody to love it as well. And I'm out there evangelizing, but I wanted to hear, tell us about that. Like, that sounds like a great job. When you're tired of it, you know where to find me, but what does it mean to be the chief evangelist?
Well, to start off, evangelism comes from a Greek word meaning bringing the good news. So when I was an evangelist the first time for Apple with Macintosh, I was bringing the good news of Macintosh, that it would make people more creative and productive. And now at the end of my career, I'm an evangelist for Canva, and Canva makes you a better communicator because you can create beautiful graphics. And so the start of great evangelism is a great product. It's hard to evangelize shit. I mean, just trust me. I know. I've done it.
Plumbers have been trying for years, but thank you. I'll be here all week.
And, I think, listen, an evangelist has the other person's best interests at heart, not just theirs. That's what separates evangelism from sales. Sales is about your income, your quota, your bonus. But evangelism, when I tell you to use Canva, it's good for me. Don't get me wrong. But I also truly believe it's good for you. And so, I mean, I'm like you. When I find something I love, I cannot stop evangelizing it. And I'll give you a perfect example. I love Liquid Death. Liquid Death, the water in the aluminum cans. I love Liquid Death. I don't get compensated for them, by them. I don't get free Liquid Death. I have an Amazon subscription, so every 2 weeks I get like 4 cases of Liquid Death. I love Liquid Death. I tell everybody about Liquid Death. I'm telling all your listeners now about Liquid Death. And I even ripped off their slogan. So for my book, Think Remarkable, I run ads that say, murder your mediocrity. Because Liquid Death's slogan is murder your thirst. And I thought, I'll just copy that. See if they come after me.
That's
so far, so good. If you're listening to this and you work for Liquid Death, don't tell your boss. And I mean, that's just the way it is. And you know why? Why do I tell people to drink Liquid Death? Because I think that this world is being overrun with plastic, right? So it's not because I'm a shareholder of Liquid Death. I want the world to be having less plastic. And I don't want you to have all microplastics in your gut. And I also think that for many teenagers, Liquid Death is a godsend because Liquid Death is in a can, several flavors, and those cans look like IPAs or beers, right? Yeah. So when you're at a party and you're drinking Liquid Death, most people think you're having a beer. So you're fitting in socially while drinking water. And if you don't believe me, I tell you what, go buy some Liquid Death and drink it while you drive past a cop and see if you get pulled over. You will.
Depends on the state. In Texas, they just let you keep going. But, this is true. It's a FOMO addresser, like people who have FOMO around drinking and parties. I've had, we had an episode, Guy, a little earlier this season, the CEO of a company called Athletic Brewing Company, which is a non-alcoholic beer that I love. And why do I love it? Because, you go to a bar and like, if you don't want to drink, you can have a liquid death, which can be awesome. You can have a non-alcoholic beer, which is delicious. And the stigma, there shouldn't be stigma, but there is, right? You just feel that go away. And so it's a really great alternative for people to make healthy choices for themselves.
Yeah.
All right, sir.
Yep.
Are you ready for lightning round?
I'm ready.
All right, here we go. I got 4 questions for you. Question number 1 is this. What is a favorite quote?
My favorite quote is, some things need to be believed to be seen.
I like that. Do you know who said it?
Me.
That's a good one. Okay, good. Number 2, name one book or podcast that is not yours that every FOMO Sapiens should read or listen to.
Every FOMO Sapien should read the book If You Want to Write by Brenda Ueland, Ueland. Now, you may not be a writer, but substitute any creative process for the word write. If you want to make movies, if you want to play the piano, if you want to take pictures, if you want to be a potter, if you want to be a podcaster. So Brenda Ueland was a writing instructor at the University of Minnesota. And the gist of this book is that if you want to write, for crying out loud, write. You don't need to have a PhD in English. You don't need anybody's permission. You don't need any proof that you're a writer. If you want to write, freaking write. And that is an emancipating thought.
That's beautiful. I know that book, and I agree. Number 3, what's a piece of advice you would give to your younger self?
Don't quit Apple.
That's a good one. So good. So real. Oh, wow. Wow. Showstopper right there. Mic drop. Oh, boy. Final question. I don't know if you can top this, but I think you might. Based on everything else, I'm excited. What is your most important memory?
My most, you mean PG rated or what? What are the boundaries?
Not, I would say not X rated. R rated's okay, depending on, where this airs.
So my most important memory, it's probably the sacrifices that my parents made for me. And they made many. I know. Listen, don't get me wrong. I come from a lower middle class family. So, I didn't have life handed to me on a silver platter. On the other hand, I will also tell you, don't cry for me, Argentina. It's not like I had to overcome just crushing poverty or crushing medical condition or, that I had to overcome this disease or I was airlifted out of South Vietnam on the last helicopter out of the embassy. I don't have that kind of Horatio Algier story. But my parents made a lot of sacrifices for me, and that is my memory of them.
Mine too. Thanks to our parents. All right. Yep. The book is called Think Remarkable. If you want to find more of Guy's stuff, Guy's prolific, and he's everywhere, and he evangelizes in a good way. But you can find him on LinkedIn for Guy Kawasaki, Instagram, same thing, Facebook, Guy. His podcast is called Remarkable People. The book is obviously Think Remarkable, and you can go to his website at GuyKawasaki.com. All right, Guy Kawasaki, thank you so much for being here.
Remember, growth, grit, and grace, and you make a difference and be remarkable.
Thank you.
All righty, thank you.